Hello EDU 428 students. This is our first video for the course, and in it I'm going to review the questions and the responses for the Check for Understandings on chapters 2 and 3 of Sensoy and D'Angelo. So the first question is asking what is critical theory? So critical theory is a scholarly approach that analyzes social conditions within their historical, cultural, and ideological context, and that's of chapter 2. The second question, why is the practice of thinking critically important in your role as a citizen and an educator? And the first answer, you develop a deeper way to understand information, is too general. The second, you're able to see the role of ideology in the construction of knowledge. That's accurate. And you are able to challenge the belief that knowledge is a value-neutral process. So B and C are the correct answers. B and C only are the correct answers. The third question is on the importance of theory in your practice as a teacher. And the question is, which of the following practices represents a collective approach to frequent tardiness and sleepiness among a few students in your morning class? The correct answer is collaborating with the students, their parents, and guidance counselors to engage in an inquiry and develop a support system. Number 4 is a short answer question, and it is asking about James Banks's research on knowledge typology, as well as Jean Annion's research on social class. So first you needed to describe Banks's typology, and then explain how Annion's research relates to his typology. So the 5 types of knowledge are personal, cultural knowledge, popular knowledge, mainstream academic knowledge, school knowledge, and transformative academic knowledge. So you would need to identify those and also discuss their definitions, and that's just a brief sentence coming right out of the text. The second part, your response should address what Annion's study was asking students and how was it relevant. So you might say something like, in Annion's study, students were asked 3 questions. What is knowledge? Where does knowledge come from? And could you make knowledge? And if so, how? The students' answers were related to their social class, either working class, middle, or affluent, and the institution of schooling also was sorted into these categories. Schools provide students with different educational experiences according to Annion based on their social class status and the resources that they have, and that's the resources among the students. The connection between Annion's research and Banks's framework is that conceptualizations of knowledge are influenced by social class and education. Specifically, one lesson that working and middle class students learn from school is that the information presented in the curriculum and through teachers is accurate, comprehensive, and should not be questioned. So what Annion is saying is that schools reinforce the definition of knowledge and the idea that knowledge comes from school, and therefore students may not see themselves as producers of knowledge. The 5th question, according to Sensoy and D'Angelo, socialization is best defined by which of the following statements? The norms, values, practices, patterns of communication, language, law, customs, and meaning shared by a group of people located in a given time and place is the definition of culture, not socialization. So the answers are B, our systematic training into the norms of our culture, and C, the process of learning the meanings and practices that enable us to understand and apply cultural norms. So the answers B and C only. Number 6 asks about the iceberg of culture diagram, is asking you to distinguish between surface and deep culture, and also discuss why they might be relevant. So why surface culture and deep culture might be relevant to teaching multilingual and multicultural students. So your answer could say something like, surface culture is easily observable and understandable, such as food, dress, and music. On the other hand, deep culture refers to unspoken and unconscious rules, such as what it means to be courteous, preference for competition and collaboration, and concepts of beauty. So surface and deep culture are relevant because students may have deep emotional connections to certain practices, norms, languages, and concepts. In addition, the school culture and home cultures of multilingual and multilingual students may be vastly different. So recognizing deep culture as well as the emotional tax that students experience navigating different social worlds can help teachers better understand their students' perspectives and experiences. These understandings can support things like relationship building, developing classroom routines, instructional practices, and curriculum design that values diverse students' cultures. The seventh question is asking for the definition of gender. The meaning behind biological, genetic, or phenotypical markers within a given culture. The biological, genetic, or phenotypical markers used to categorize people into male and female bodies. The roles, behaviors, and expectations assigned by society based on biological, genetic, or phenotypical markers. So the answer A and C are the accurate answers. So the social construction of gender is what's discussed in the chapter. There's also a point on pages 40 to 41 about human objectivity. So the statement, "We live in a free world and human objectivity can easily be attained." In other words, an individual can reject social norms and live without social, psychological, or material consequences. That statement is false, right? Because one's peers, one's family, one's professional circumstances may be impacted based on one's adoption of the social norms. So rejecting the social norms can have consequences, even though that is problematic. That is the case. Sensoy and D'Angelo in number 9 clarify the distinctions between race and ethnicity. So which statement most accurately differentiates the terms? So it's B only. Race is a system of human categorization based on phenotypic characteristics. Race is not genetic, right? And race is not static. Ethnicity refers to common language, religious practices, and ancestry among a group of people. So B is the correct answer. The last question, number 10, is another short answer question. This was worth 5 points. So at the end of the chapter, we have been taught that social memberships such as race, class, and gender do not and should not matter, and thus must be minimized and denied. That's from page 47. This question asks you to consider the statement relative to the entire chapter. So it's at the end of the chapter, but you're being asked to think about the following questions relative to the whole chapter. So what are the limitations of a neutral frame of reference or neutral lens? How can individuals develop critical social justice literacy? And what might be the possible affordances of developing critical social justice literacy for teachers of multicultural and multilingual learners? So this question needs you to first of all discuss what a neutral frame of reference is. So Sensoy and D'Angelo say that even though we're taught neutrality is an ideal, it's impossible because our perspectives are shaped by our experiences and our socialization. And the second part is discussing critical social justice literacy. So developing critical social justice literacy means that you're challenging neutrality and that you're understanding your relationship between yourself and the social group that you belong to. In other words, you're understanding your positionality. So for teachers of multicultural and multilingual learners, critical social justice literacy can help foster the capacity to recognize the shared understandings among members of a social group. So this does not mean ignoring the differences across social groups, right? This means recognizing that members within a social group share some common understandings, right? And so therefore, again, sort of like the prior question about frameworks, teachers with critical social justice literacy engage in practices and curriculum design that respects and values student social groups. Some responses also gave some specific examples, gave some non-examples, or talked about concepts like inequality, bias, discrimination, and those were also relevant and sort of discussing the importance of not having those bias and discriminatory practices and recognizing one's biases in order to work with students who have diverse backgrounds. So those are the responses to the answers to the check for understanding. It's important that you make sure you understand those points when you develop your next assignment, which is the review of a case study. You'll need to incorporate these concepts into that response. So an understanding of culture, an understanding of socialization, those are important that you include those definitions in your analysis of that case study. So be sure to go back to chapters 2 and 3, go back to these questions specifically. Those are the ones that are important, most important for your next assignment and sort of what I want to make sure you walk away with after reading these chapters. Okay, take care. Hello, EDU 428.